Recent judgmental comments on a couple of my videos got me thinking about how ADHD is or can be perceived by other people. Initially, I felt sad and angry about those comments, but I decided that instead of dwelling on that, I'm going to use it as inspiration to make this video. Today, we're talking about what it's like to live with ADHD, how it is different from having autism alone or ADHD alone, how it can be perceived by others, and why it is often missed or overlooked, especially in females. I'm Kath, I'm 41 years old and I am late diagnosed with ADHD and autism. Last year I was diagnosed with combined type ADHD, and 2 weeks ago I was diagnosed with autism. Looking back on my childhood, I can now see traits of both ADHD and autism. So for example, when I think back, I was very outwardly hyperactive at times. There would be certain situations where I was always spinning. I was always like, to make things more fun, I would bang my head on the back of the couch in a fun way, like so it felt like I was on fairground rides. I've always loved fairgrounds. I was always like doing things like climbing on the garage roof, climbing on the car, things like that. Autistic traits wise, I was very shy, like painfully shy. I was an early learner, like I could read like quite advanced reading at a young age before I started school. I did everything early. I've always experienced deep empathy from a very young age and very highly sensitive to the environment around me, to other people's emotions, to what's going on in the world, even at a young age. I always felt like I was on the outside looking in when it came to friendship groups, and I struggled with social situations and things like that. Now I'm talking about my experience as an adult with ADHD. For you personally, you might experience things very similar to the way I do, or you may experience things completely differently. Obviously, every neurodivergent person experiences things differently from another. So I'm hoping that maybe some of you can relate to this. For some, hopefully it will educate some people, and for others, it might just provide a little bit of support if you yourself are wondering whether you're neurodivergent, or you've recently got a diagnosis, or you love someone who you believe is neurodivergent. So the way I describe ADHD for myself, I have days when, some days like, it's not like multiple personalities obviously, but it's like some days the ADHD is in charge, other days the autism's in charge. Some days it fluctuates between the two, and some days it can even feel almost balanced. Say I wake up and the ADHD is in charge, like I don't know what exactly triggers the particular traits to come in, but when I wake up feeling more ADHD, I feel more outwardly hyperactive, more inwardly hyperactive. I am thinking like a mile a minute. I am moving faster, talking faster. I almost find it a little bit easier to get out of bed. Not on all days, but I obviously get overwhelmed as well with the ADHD, thinking about all the things that I need to do. And because I can't prioritize tasks and I can't like think about which one to start first, or I end up procrastinating a lot. But on those days, I kind of have a little bit more get up and go initially, until it comes to the point where I need to get on with something, and then I will procrastinate. And to some, like maybe from a neurotypical point of view, you hear it a lot. A lot of neurotypical people, I mean, we all procrastinate, whether we're neurodivergent or neurotypical, but you'll hear it a lot. Well, it's just laziness, or why don't you just get on with it? And you know, if you've got ADHD or autism, and you procrastinate, you will know that it can be really debilitating at times. It is not that we don't want to do something, we want to do that thing, but we just can't bring ourselves to start it. That often comes from perfectionism, because we think subconsciously we think, I can't start this unless I'm going to do it perfectly. And let's face it, we're not perfect beings. No one is perfect, and we're often not going to do things perfectly. So that causes a lot of procrastination for us. So on these ADHD days, I procrastinate a lot. But then at the last minute, if I've got like a deadline, or you often hear it, like if someone is coming around to your house, you might procrastinate all day about tidying the house, but then in the last half an hour, you get everything done. You get like hours and hours worth of stuff done in half an hour, because you've got that under pressure feeling, that feeling like it almost feels risky, and it feels like, right, I need to do this now. I work better under pressure in a lot of situations. So that's an example that we often hear about. When I am in ADHD mode, I drive faster, not on purpose. Like there'll be times when I'm driving and I'm going over the speed limit without realising it, because it doesn't feel as fast as it is. Obviously, I correct my speed once I realise, but it's kind of like, it makes me drive a bit faster. It makes me listen to certain types of music. I feel more like energetic in that way. I'm moving faster, everything feels a little bit faster. But then at the same time, if I'm procrastinating, it can feel really slow as well. So for me, ADHD, I've got combined types, so hyperactive and inattentive. When I'm moving faster, I'm also a bit more clumsy. I'm also like more likely to knock into things. I'm more likely to forget things. I often will put things in a safe place and forget where the safe place is, things like that. So that's just more the surface level aspects of ADHD. I am going to go into the more emotional and mental aspects of things a bit later on in the video, but I'm just kind of explaining from an outside perspective and from what I experience. So if I wake up and my autism feels like it's more, I don't want to say in charge, but more like at the forefront, I automatically wake up a little bit more. It's not that I feel calmer, I feel quieter, I don't want to speak to people unless I have to. I feel a little bit very introverted. I just want to be on my own. So for example, when the autism is at the forefront, if I'm out walking my dog, I tend to avoid people because I don't feel like saying hi to anyone or having a conversation. It's not in a rude way, it's just I need to just be by myself. Whereas just going back for a minute, when the ADHD is at the forefront, I'm more okay with like walking past people, saying hi, and sometimes when other people have got dogs, you have a little chat about the dogs and stuff. But when like the autism is at the forefront, I don't want to do that. I just want to be on my own. I don't want to speak to people. I don't want to see people. When it comes to at home, I tend to be when I'm having an autism at the forefront kind of day, I'm just more thoughtful about what I'm doing. I'm more careful, if that's the word. Obviously I'm not taking risks like in the same way. Like when I've got ADHD, I'm just go, and I'm more likely to just be impulsive and take risks. Whereas when the autism's at the forefront, I'm more, I'm trying to think of the right word, but considered about how I do things. That's probably not the right word. I think more about what I'm doing. I obviously overthink no matter what. I always overthink, but I'm more likely to research really deeply when I'm at the forefront of autism. Like more likely to research deeply. I'm more likely to be more on high alert, more cautious of things, and it's like a complete opposite almost. Then I have the days when I can fluctuate between the two. So I can be, I'll use an example. This is an example I always use, but for me, it's a really obvious, it's obvious to me how the traits kind of fluctuate and come in and out. So if I've got something I'm excited about, like a fairground, I am in ADHD mode, and I'm like excited, I'm hyperactive, I'm moving fast, I will talk really fast, I can't stop talking about it. I am very much, which I know can also be an autistic trait as well, to be really enthusiastic and talking about something. So yeah, it's almost like they're mixing in there, but there's a lot of hyperactivity, a lot of outward hyperactivity, a lot of inward hyperactivity as well. And then I'll go to the fairground, I'll do all the spinning I need to do, move really fast, go on fast rides. I'll be like loving it, so excited. It's almost like it's giving me that dopamine that I need. And then I'll reach a point where I'm like, where I can start to, so say if I'm at a fairground, I can smell the smoke that's coming off the machines more. I can smell like the food cooking more. I can hear the noises more. And that's when I know the ADHD has taken a step back and the autistic traits are coming in, because when I get to that point where I'm starting to have really, really a lot of sensory issues, and I'm starting to like, it's almost like I've gone all the way up to here and then I'm like coming down. And I'm not saying like ADHD is up here. I mean, in terms of like hyperactivity, yeah, ADHD is up here. I'm not saying like mood wise, it's not like happy mood, sad mood, but it's more like, this is me getting excited for the fairground and being on the fairground, and then I start getting the sensory issues, and then I'm getting more, the autistic traits are coming in, and then I'm like, right, I need to go. And as soon as I get that feeling, I'm just too overwhelmed at that point. I need to go, and then I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak to anyone. I want to be on my own. I feel exhausted. I feel worn out. And I think it's almost like I'm having so much fun, and then afterwards I'm thinking, was that even fun? It's a weird thing to try and explain, and of course I'm not saying that when you have autism you can't have fun. I'm not saying that at all, but it's almost like my mind changes that much that I'm thinking, was that even worth it? And it was worth it, because in the moment I was loving it. So that's an obvious example to me about how my traits can go from one into the other. The same would apply if, say, I was having a day where I was having more of an autistic day, and then, say, for example, I was driving. I just want to add as well, sorry, going back to the driving, like I said, when I've got ADHD, I tend to sometimes drive a bit faster and not realise how fast I'm going. When I'm having more of an autistic day, I tend to drive a bit slower, but it feels faster. I don't know, I'd love to know if any of you experience that as well. If you can put that in the comments, because that's really interesting to me. It's like almost like I'm driving the car, it feels like I'm going faster than the speed limit, but I'm actually going slower than the speed limit. So my driving is very, what's the word? It's very, like I'm a very cautious, when I say I'm a cautious driver, like I'm a confident driver. Driving where I know I'm very confident at driving. I'm comfortable at driving. I enjoy driving when I'm driving somewhere I know. If I do not know where I'm going, or say I've got a new journey to go on, I'm very cautious of that. And it's almost like, in general, when I'm somewhere I know, the ADHD is in charge of the driving. Sometimes it's not. If I am having if I'm having a particularly autistic day, then I am still a little bit like driving slower, and it feels like I'm going faster, even if it's somewhere I know. But when it comes to like driving somewhere new, it's almost like the autistic traits really kick in then, and I'm cautious. I have to do practice runs. So say, for example, I had an appointment somewhere. I've done this so many times. If I've got an appointment somewhere, an important appointment, and I don't know where I'm going for it, I have to sometimes I've done up to like 3 practice runs before the day of the appointment. get my husband to come with me in the car the first time for moral support. I'll still drive, but I'm like, can you just be there with me while I do it? And then the next time I do the journey, I'm like, right, okay, I've done this before. It helps me to remember, like, I can vaguely remember right, I remember going down this road. Obviously I use the sat nav as well. And then the third time I do it, I'm like, I don't always do 3, but it depends. But then when it comes to the actual day, I think, right, I've done it before, I can do it again. And obviously then the more I do that journey, it just becomes like second nature then. But that's what I just want to add. When I'm driving somewhere new, especially if it's somewhere a little bit further away, my autism is always in control. I am on high alert. I am very cautious. I'm like the opposite of ADHD. I don't take any risks. I'm just really cautious, for example, when I'm driving. So, sorry, went off track there, which is obviously like an ADHD thing, but I have days when it's kind of like fluctuates between the two. I can have times when I'm feeling quiet and I'm experiencing a lot of ADHD traits, and I think, right, okay, I feel okay to go out in the world, go food shopping or go shopping in a city centre or something, which I don't really always enjoy. It depends what we're doing, but it feels like I can do it. But then like halfway through the time that I'm there, I'm thinking, oh, it's too much, I need to go. And then I need to come back, and it's like I have to recover from that. Same applies to social situations. If there's something I'm looking forward to, like for example, I need to know, this is where kind of the ADHD and autism combine often. If there's an event coming up, like for example, a wedding or a party or a night out. I don't go on a lot of nights out, to be honest, but if I know what the music's going to be like, if I know I'm going to like the music, if I know I'm going to like the atmosphere, if I know I'm going to have certain people to talk to, then that's the autism in me. I need to know these things. And if I think, right, okay, I can imagine that, yeah, I'm going to like the music, I'm going to have people to talk to, I feel like I'm going to have fun. So it's like a combination of the autism is like wants to know what's going on, what's going to be like, and then the ADHD then starts getting excited about it and thinks, yeah, it's going to be really good, it's going to be really good. And I'll go there and I'll be like, and I'll start off, when I'm actually there, it's almost like I'm in the ADHD traits at first, and then it can, depending on how it goes, it can quickly fluctuate between the ADHD and autistic traits. So I don't know if you've heard of, and this is another thing, why ADHD can come across as it can come across like almost like, well, how come you could do that the other day and you can't do that now? And yeah, that can also apply to ADHD and autism. But when a person has autism alone or ADHD alone, then although neither are predictable exactly, there's a lot of traits, like for example, that an autistic person will probably in a lot of situations know that, right, this is always going to be a problem for me. This is always going to overstimulate me every single time. Although I'm obviously not speaking for other people, but I'm speaking on behalf of people that I know who are autistic. I know that there's a lot of experiences where they pretty much know that's always going to bother them. That's always going to overstimulate them. And it's almost like a consistent thing. Although I'm not saying it applies all the time. And then again, same with ADHD. There's people I know who have the same issues over and over that they know are always going to be the same issues. Like it might be that they literally, like for myself, the ADHD part of me is, I know that if I'm in ADHD mode, I'm late. I'm late for everything. And it's not because it's not because I can't be bothered. It's not because of anything like that. It's just because I can't process time. So if I'm in ADHD mode and I need to be somewhere, I'm going to be late. If I'm in more of an autistic mode, I'm going to be early. I'm not going to be on time, I'm going to be early, because I don't know how to be on time. It's either, I'm either late or I'm either very early. So but most of the time, like throughout my life, there is a pattern of me being late. So, but for example, someone with ADHD alone might know they're always late. They might know that. Even no matter how hard they try to be on time, they might always be late. Or they might know that certain situations are always going to make them feel hyperactive, or certain situations are always going to make them feel like, make them forget things. Whereas when you have both ADHD and autism, it's very unpredictable, because it's like they're very opposite to each other. So I know that there's a lot of times I'm going to be overstimulated by things, but there's going to be some days when I can cope with that to an extent. There's loads of time. I've got a lot of sensory issues. There's a lot of times when I'm overwhelmed with sensory issues, and even the slightest little noise feels like the most uncomfortable thing ever. But then there's other times when I can put myself in a situation that I want to be in, and I can handle unbelievable amounts of noise. But that again depends on the environment. So I'll give you an example of this. Whether or not, if you're in the UK or Ireland, you've probably heard of Bongos Bingo. So it's like a really fun bingo night out with like a rave and everything. And it's like a really good night out, and in my opinion anyway. So I can't cope with the noise of a supermarket, like the trolleys squeaking and people coughing and then beeping off the tills and things like that, and the artificial light. But if I choose to go to somewhere like Bongos Bingo, it's got flashing lights, it's in the dark mostly, but flashing lights, it's got good music but loud music. There's like, at one point there's a 15-minute rave where all the lights are switched off and it's just like glow sticks, and it's music that I love, and I can dance and I can have fun, and it's like the loudest music, and I can just have the time of my life there, and I love it. But then the next day I'm like, I can't cope with the telly being on in the day, or the sound of someone speaking outside in the distance, or the sound of the electricity, the sound of like a light switch or something. So it's kind of like, yeah, from an outside perspective, from maybe a neurotypical perspective, they might think, well, how come you can do that sometimes but you can't do it other times? Or you're obviously pretending if you can handle that then, but how come you're saying you can't handle it now? And that's because everything fluctuates. Same applies for autism alone and ADHD alone, but it's very inconsistent with ADHD, because it's almost like two different opposite ends of the spectrum almost, and you don't know which one is gonna make an appearance today, or well, you do when you're in it, but it's almost like it just comes and goes like that. So I just want to add as well that when I film these videos, the judgmental comments I received were kind of on the lines of, well, you can't be neurodivergent. It was along those lines. You're not neurodivergent, you're just wasting people's time getting an assessment. Almost like that person thinks that I've not struggled, and just because I don't appear to be neurodivergent in the video, then I'm not neurodivergent. And that's not true whatsoever. I have experienced a lot in my life. I've had a lot of childhood trauma. I've been very empathic since I was young. And as a result of, like, a lot of autistic people are deeply empathic. And as a result of that, when you're empathic in a world that we live in, like the type of world we live in, that alone is difficult. because you're feeling things on behalf of other people, on behalf of animals, on behalf of the planet, and it feels like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. So that in itself is a struggle. The childhood trauma I went through is a struggle. Being neurodivergent and going undiagnosed for 40 to 41 years of my life has been a struggle. And I've not even touched upon the emotional parts of it yet, which I am going to talk about in a moment. But I just want to add, when I film these videos, I am either in ADHD mode, like the ADHD is at the forefront, or I'm feeling, on the rare days, I'm feeling a little bit more balanced, like the two are in balance, which doesn't happen often. I would say today I'm a bit more in ADHD mode. You don't get to see me like on these videos when the autism's at the forefront, because I won't do a video, and that I won't feel like doing a video when I'm having more of an autistic day, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to. I'm not saying that other people don't film videos being autistic, but for me personally, I don't have the impulse to do that video if I'm having a day where I'm experiencing more autistic traits. I wouldn't want to speak to a camera. I wouldn't want to put myself out there in that situation. I just, like I mentioned earlier, I don't really want to speak to people. I'd rather be quiet. I'd rather be just doing things quietly. So you don't get to see me at the moment. I'm not saying I will never do a video when I'm feeling the autistic traits more. I'm not saying that, but up until now, you haven't seen that from me. Also, I edit my videos. I edit a lot of bits out so it's getting a bit more straight to the point. I edit out, and this, and now I'm realising there's a form of masking, but I edit out a lot of I've got like an eye tick thing that I do, and now I'm probably talking about it, might appear, but there's a lot of that in the videos that I do, and I edit them out. And maybe one day I will keep them in. I don't know until I watch this video what kind of, like, if that will come across in the video, and whether I'll decide to keep any of that in, I don't know. I edit out a lot of awkward moments, which if I left them in, would probably be a lot more obvious that I'm neurodivergent, but at the end of the day, I don't have to prove myself to anyone. I know what I've experienced in life and what I still experience in life. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about ADHD and how, from an outside point of view, it can potentially come across to others like you're neurotypical. Because let's just say you do have a day when those traits are kind of almost in balance. Those impulsive or hyperactive traits are in balance with the more thoughtful, slow-moving traits, and it might come across like a neurotypical person. And I believe that my ADHD, I describe myself as an introvert. I am an introvert, but when my ADHD is more at the forefront, I'm slightly more extroverted. So to another person, that might come across as neurotypical, but I'm still an introvert. I have even the odd time been told that I come across as confident, which really shocks me, because I've never, like, I feel more confident now after doing a lot of work on myself than I used to, but it's not something I would still even describe myself as now outwardly. But that's why it can come across as neurotypical sometimes. I just want to go into the emotional and mental aspect of ADHD, or ADHD and autism, whether you've got each one of those alone or whether you've got both. They are deep emotional traits that come with all neurodivergency, and we feel our emotions deeper. We feel, whether we're happy, whether we're sad, we feel so deeply. If, like, we experience the highest highs and the lowest lows, and we will be able to find more joy in something that you think that, or maybe that a neurotypical person thinks is, oh, that's just every day, that's just a leaf, or that's just a butterfly, or whatever. Like, we are capable of finding a lot of joy in things like that. We, as a result of experiencing our emotions so deeply, when we're struggling, we are really struggling. It's already difficult to be neurodivergent in a world that is made for neurotypicals nowadays. It never used to be. It used to be a world where we would thrive. It used to be, when it was more natural. But it's not like that now. And we are navigating our way through everyday life as a neurodivergent person in a neurotypical world. We do not necessarily get the same, we don't get the same jokes as other people often. We don't necessarily pick up on the same social cues. We tend to struggle more in social situations, depending on the person, obviously, and depending on the circumstance. But there's a lot of deep emotional aspects to being neurodivergent. We are more likely, people with ADHD and autism, or both, are more likely to become addicted to substances or to alcohol or to other things, are more likely to take their own lives, are more likely to self-harm, are more likely to experience depression and anxiety. So whatever you may see on the surface does not mean you know what a neurodivergent person is experiencing on the inside. We are going to what I mentioned earlier about how it's often ADHD, autism, or ADHD is often missed in people, especially in females, because we mask. Males mask too at times, but it's almost like females tend to, studies have been done that show that females tend to, especially when they're younger, they want to fit in more. So without realising, they are masking their traits to try and feel more socially accepted, to try and fit in with a certain group of friends, to try and feel accepted by people and not rejected. And that is why it often goes missed. I am 41 years old and I've only just found out that I am ADHD. And like I mentioned in my previous video, I felt really sad when I found out about, well, both at each time. I felt sad. I felt sad for the younger version of myself, not because I had ADHD and not because I have autism, but because that younger version of me went unnoticed and struggled as a result of that. So there are a lot of deep emotional and mental aspects to having ADHD and autism, and just because you might see someone and think, well, no, they can't be autistic or they can't have ADHD, doesn't mean you're right. I wanted to do this video. I wanted to use that comment as inspiration for the video. And again, it's no judgment on that person, right? I'm going through my life. I'm trying my hardest to not be a judgmental person, and it doesn't come naturally for me to judge people. Obviously, there's times when people say something and you think, oh, well, you know, why have they said that? And the instinct, like the urge is like, well, if you've just annoyed me, so I'm annoyed at you. But instead of doing that, let's put it into something more productive and educate people who might have misunderstood ADHD or just neurodiversity in general, and use it as a way to bring more awareness instead of being bitter about a comment. So thank you so much for watching. I may have rambled on a little bit, and that's what it's like in my brain. It's like one thing to the other. So if you found value in this video, please like and subscribe. I've got other videos about ADHD alone, autism alone, being a parent to neurodivergent children, different things about right to choose, about NHS autism assessment and things like that. So if you found this valuable, please like and subscribe. I'll be back soon with more videos. Thank you. Bye.